Okay, we'll dive right in. Our first presenter is Jason Emery on the Missoula County cybersecurity policy.
Good morning. So ultimately what this is, it's something I've been working on for quite a while in conjunction with some of our other IT groups within the county. That would include things like Partnership Health Center and the 911 folks. And in addition to that, I've been working with Erica Grindy a bit as well. And the goal of this policy is to set ultimately a level baseline for how we conduct our cybersecurity operations here at the county. What we found over the last few years is there was quite a difference in how things were being done. And I think from a consistency standpoint, that puts us at risk. With the fact that the county does offer the cybersecurity coverage for these other entities, as well as Missoula County's primary operations, we felt it was important to ultimately get everybody on the same page. So what this policy is it doesn't speak to specific vendors or technologies or things like that, but just kind of those base industry standard practices that should be accomplished or implemented on a system to keep it safe. One other important piece I think is worth pointing out in this policy is the need to have periodic external audits and assessments of where you're at. So, like anything you're doing, when you're in the weeds working on complex subjects, sometimes it's easy to kind of miss the forest for the trees, for lack of a better term. And so this policy does dictate that periodically vulnerability assessments and external audits be performed just to validate that we, and this would include my shop as well, are doing what we should be, and looking for additional support. So usually out of those types of assessments, an external company, LMG would be a good example here in Missoula, would actually provide recommendations to improve your program, because any good cybersecurity awareness program or cybersecurity program in general is really more of a journey. It's constantly evolving and the threats constantly are changing. So you never really get to the end of it. It's something that you need to work on constantly. So essentially this would apply to all Missoula County operations, Partnership Health Center, and Office of Emergency Management for the county. I don't see it changing a ton. I think a lot of these standards will be in place for quite some time. My goal was to not have a policy that was having to constantly be updated, every year or two, which is challenging. So I guess with that, are there any questions?
No, this seems to make a lot of sense. So this is a brand new policy. It's not an amendment to any existing policy that we have.
Correct. Yep. It'll work in conjunction with some of our other policies, like the acceptable use of technology and our mobile security policy. This was actually something I forgot to mention as well. I don't know, is Erica on the call? I don't think she is. This is actually something that our insurance provider was looking for as well. I did not mention that. This is something that's pretty standard across the industry, and to continue our coverage with our external cybersecurity coverage, this is something that they really wanted to see us have, so that ultimately they have a good idea when they're insuring us of what our risk might be, and having things spelled out obviously makes a lot of sense.
Okay. Nope, looks good. I move that we adopt the cybersecurity policy.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great, thanks.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
So I just lost the agenda on my screen. I'm trying to pick it up on my, oh, here we go. I got it on my phone. Adrian.
Commissioners, I'm sorry, Adrian, I was jumping in front of you. Just to state that with regards to the lease you're about to look at, I'm actually going to ask that you table it and take it back up on Thursday. I heard from the commercial agent in the last 30 minutes, they've got some small revisions that they want to make to it. And so we need to talk to them a little bit further about what those are. I expect we'll have it finalized by Thursday for your review and possible approval. Sorry to interrupt you, Adrian. I'm sure you're prepared to answer any other questions they may have about it generally, but if we could take this up on Thursday, that would be great.
That's easy to do.
Sure.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks.
Okay, Adrian.
What this lease does, I guess, just for context and background, currently the health department and their testing branch is utilizing the fairgrounds for their symptomatic COVID-19 testing and testing of close contacts, which is a critical operation, obviously, for our continued awareness of spread in our community, as well as being able to isolate and quarantine known cases. That facility, though, is just ill-equipped to for that operation for the long haul. In the summer, they're already experiencing some heat issues with lack of air conditioning, as well as going into the winter months with lack of heating. So this facility was sought out by the testing branch. They did an extensive search of available properties within their kind of target area. And as Brian just mentioned, we're just working through and negotiating the final terms of the lease. But it's going through our office primarily as a way to streamline it for eventual FEMA and federal reimbursement as an eligible.
Great.
Adrian, could you describe the property, please?
So obviously it's out there on Flynn Lane, but if you're familiar at all with that area, it's the old Garden City shop out there.
It's quite big.
It is quite big. It does have, it has about 7 private office spaces, but the biggest selling feature for the health department was the fact that it has a drive-through warehouse, so that it minimizes the exposure to those conducting the testing activities, while also providing kind of that climate-controlled environment that they need. One of the things that's going to allow them to be a little bit more nimble with this facility is by moving some of their scheduling activities that currently are occurring within the call center, as well as some of just the operations around the logistics for testing in general, being able to stockpile supplies. So going into the long term, this facility really, they feel like, is going to help them be set up for success. And then, eventually it could be used as somewhat of a vaccination site should we get to that point.
Could you enhance the visitor experience by adding a car wash to it also, maybe? I don't know.
Incentivizing people to come get a test for the car wash. I like it.
That's a steep lease, but it's a really big site, if I remember right.
Yeah, so we'll take this up on Thursday?
Yeah.
Okay.
Perfect. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right. Casey, you're up next.
Commissioners, could I interrupt for just a second and ask Brian and Adrian, I have to publish Thursday's admin today. Will we have those changes ready for Thursday?
You're not going to like my response, but my answer is that's my goal.
Okay.
I got a phone call probably about 10 minutes before this meeting, so I need to call them back after the meeting, and I'll do my best, Andy.
All right. Thanks, Brian.
All right, Casey, you're up.
Hey, yep. So what's in front of you is a guaranteed maximum price amendment for the standard contract we have with Jackson Contractor Group for the elections building. This is for the phase 2 of the election center project, so the north half of that warehouse. Yeah, pretty just standard contract showing out their pricing. And if you have finance questions, I'd probably recommend you ask Andrew.
Casey, do you feel like they're staying on their timeline?
We're doing the best we can. With this, they can get going on some pre-permit stuff like the roofing and some demolition stuff. And then we're hopefully at the finish line of getting a permit through the city so they can continue working on that. So it's going to be tight getting the north half of the building stuff done, but I'm hopeful that we can have a pretty workable system for the election in November.
I'd heard that the city was struggling moving building permits along. Are you encountering some of that?
So we've pretty much finalized their major permit stuff through that. We're just finalizing some design excellence stuff through them, and we've been in close contact going back and forth with the the head, Don Veru there, and the development services, making sure this is getting pushed forward. So
Good. Glad to hear it.
Andrew, do you have anything you'd like to add? Can't hear you, Andrew.
I'm sorry. No, I don't really have anything to add. This falls within our budget for this current year. We're just over $1 million, and we have available to us on the project, and some of this being grant funded. So it's everything I expected for this year.
Okay. I would move that we approve the amendment.
Great. All in favor?
Aye.
Excellent. Thank you, Casey.
great, thanks.
All right, Chris.
Good morning, Commissioners. So this is a request to authorize Commissioner Slotnick to sign the minor subdivision paperwork for the Trinity project. So as you'll recall, the Trinity project is the permanent supportive housing project that's slated to go in next to the detention facility. The designer and developer, Blue Line, is ready to submit the minor subdivision application here in the next few days. In order to do that, it has to be signed by the property owner. And of course, Missoula County is the current property owner. So this is to create the separate parcel on which the development for Trinity will occur, which will separate that parcel from the detention center parent parcel. So what I'm looking for today is authorization for Josh to be able to sign that paperwork when it is ready to submit to the city of Missoula for the minor subdivision.
Great.
And Chris, is Blue Line picking up any of the minor subdivision fees?
They're picking up 100% of the cost, yes.
Okay. Okay, I would move that we authorize the chair to sign the application.
Great. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We just keep our fingers crossed that the process moves quickly. I remember there was a lot of consternation about that. All right, do we have correspondence? Okay, seeing none, we can jump right to a discussion item. Public monuments.
So, Commissioners, you received a couple of pieces of correspondence from a gentleman who's looking to have you place a sign on the World War I monument that's on the courthouse. Well, it's not on the lawn anymore, technically, but it's adjacent to the courthouse lawn on courthouse property regarding the executive order that was signed by President Trump. And I see we have many esteemed counsel on the call, so I'll defer to them.
So let's let them tear into this.
Okay, I think I'll be the one to jump in. So, you know, it's within the commissioner's decision if you want to put a sign up or not. That's your call. I briefly looked at what we have before you, which is a request to put up a sign based on the executive order. If I look at the federal statute that executive order refers to, and that is the Veterans Memorial Preservation and Recognition Act of 2003, you know, I don't believe that necessarily would apply to the statue outside of the courthouse. If you look at that statute, where that applies is if it is a structure, plaque, statue, or monument that's located on property owned by or under the jurisdiction of the federal government, or if it is in fact defaced by somebody who traveled interstate to do the vandalizing. So those are two exceptions, or those are two circumstances that would cause somebody to fall under that statute's purview. I mean, if the commissioners want to consider any level of a sign, what they should likely look at is their own state law, which predates the executive order by a fair bit under 45-6-104, which basically says if you deface or vandalize a memorial, that you could face 10 years in jail or up to $50,000 fines if the damage exceeds $1,500. So we have state laws in place that would be more applicable to our own statute than the federal law referenced in the executive order.
Given that it's not on federal property and we don't have any evidence that someone traveled across state lines to vandalize the statue.
Correct.
And it sounds like this state law provides plenty of protection for us.
So I guess then the question is, and in reading some of the text of the executive order, which frankly was inflammatory in nature, I am not terribly enthusiastic about the president's, certainly the way the president's order has been framed, beyond the applicability of it, as you pointed out, Brian. So it seems like one of the requests, or the request that we've received to have some additional signage at the Doughboy is predicated, I guess, on the assumption that that signage would deter folks, because it seems like you have the prosecutorial tools at your avail, such that if we actually apprehended someone defacing or damaging a monument and memorial as such, we could hold that person accountable. It's not that we don't have a law in the book. It's more of would additional signage dissuade folks who otherwise might be so inclined to damage the memorial. So I guess that's kind of the question that I'm wondering about, is whether that would truly make a difference. And I also would want to, as opposed to what some folks might be insinuating, decouple the Black Lives Matter demonstrators and demonstration from whatever vandalism may have occurred, because I think it's an erroneous assumption on some folks' part that it was the demonstrators who did the vandalism, and we have no idea who did it.
Yeah, I'm going to just kind of second that. I'm glad that we have a law at our disposal if we need it. I don't personally believe a plaque or a sign on the Doughboy statue would have prevented vandalism or would prevent further vandalism, and I'm thoroughly unconvinced that the people who did deface the statue had anything to do with the Black Lives Matter protests or anything else. We have no idea. So it's a giant leap there. So I'm kind of thoroughly satisfied with things as they are, and that we have a law to protect the statue if we need to. And I'm really grateful that the people who put that statue up chose to do a Doughboy statue and not just something horrible and heinous. So we'd have to take the statue down.
Yeah.
We just got some luck there.
I would, yeah, I think you're right. I would concur. Yeah, if there are plenty of cases where we do place signage around Missoula County, but we certainly need to be have some well, shall we say that if we were to place signage for every single law in the books that is out there, there would be such a proliferation of signage as to make it meaningless, I think. It's one thing to post Tamarack or Juniper drives that there's no parking there, but I'm less convinced that, as you mentioned, Josh, that adding signage at the Doughboy Monument would have dissuaded anyone from taking a paint can to it. Thanks, Brian.
Thank you, Brian. Does anybody want to speak to this before we jump to our next discussion item? Okay, great. The next one is a library time capsule.
Well, I had received a couple messages from Jeff Badenoch on this. Maybe you did it at some point in the past too, Josh. Not sure, but anyway, he's on the board of directors of the library. I don't know if it's a library foundation or Chris, do you remember? There's the foundation, and then there's the library proper. In any event, Jeff is dialed into the library, and the library, as part of the construction project, is going to have a time capsule installed somewhere in the facility, and he's soliciting contributions from Missoula County for the time capsule. And this could range from letters from those of us on the commission to other artifacts that would fit into, I don't have the size of this vessel at hand here, but whatever would fit into it.
Yeah. Allison, is this something you feel like you might be able to contribute something to?
Sure.
Communications, that would probably be the best.
Yeah, we can think of some stuff.
No dog in this fight. Whatever you feel like posterity should take a look at, I think that's a great thing.
Okay. I think we have a lot we could put in there for 2020. So
yeah,
Allison, did you receive any of this correspondence from Mr. Badenoch? If not, I can forward it to you.
yeah, if you could forward, this is the first I've really heard
And
of it.
Dave,
So, yeah.
I just sent it to her.
Okay, great.
Thanks, Chris.
Yeah, and the size of the time capsule is 12 by 12 by 14. So nothing too big is exactly how
Well,
it sets it up.
We got some paper to put in there.
Yeah,
And
and,
Allison's right. We have a lot to work with in 2020.
and presumably we are not the only ones contributing to the time capsule. So maybe a COVID test. What do you think?
We put a swab in there.
There we go.
Lord knows we spent a lot of time talking about nasal swabs.
Right. Well, thanks, Allison, for looking in on that.
You
Hey,
bet.
Josh, just to close the loop on the monument thing, you think we ought to maybe draft a response letter to Mr. Gordon?
I think, given his passion, that's a good idea.
Okay.
Anybody want to step up to?
Brian did such an excellent job.
He did. He laid out state law and showed why the federal law didn't apply, and we actually have a state law.
Brian, are you still out there? Would you mind drafting a couple paragraphs?
One paragraph, even.
Coming back online, I
Couple
can
sentences?
be happy to help the commissioners with some language.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Would be great. Thanks, Dave. That's a good idea. It's very considerate of us to get back to him because he was very passionate. So.
Well, and I think driving home the message that we too have invested heavily and care deeply about this Doughboy statue. So in no way, shape, or form is anything that we are contemplating by way of not placing signage condoning anyone from destroying the thing.
Yeah. All right. Any upcoming board meetings, review meetings, comments, instructions?
So I had one quick thing, commissioners. Dave, you had asked about the upcoming deadline related to the potential change to a mail election. Did you want staff to draft a letter of supporting a move to a mail election in November for the commission to consider?
I would love for that.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, thanks for doing that. I'm hoping it's going to happen anyway, but let's put our weight behind it.
Can do.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Do we have any other COVID or fire?
You know, I think we chatted enough this morning, but if there are any specific questions that I can answer, I'd be happy to, if you have any.
I think you did a good job describing the upcoming fire situation.
So, Adrian, what is the fire danger right now in the Lolo National Forest?
High fire danger as of Monday morning. So our indices put us kind of squarely into that high fire danger. We have some room to grow, but with looking at the forecast and certainly the winds, the fine fuels are drying out quickly. So I anticipate that in the next probably week to week and a half, we will see a bump probably to very high fire danger, which is very normal for this time of year.
So refresh my memory. How does high fire danger map against campfires?
So campfires, so that's a good question. So open burning, that's burning with a permit, debris burning type things, closes when we go to high fire danger. But campfires remain, excuse me, remain legal and allowable within Missoula County and on National Forest land. We typically have those conversations about restrictions, whether those are stage 1 restrictions or stage 2 fire restrictions, once we get into the very high and extreme fire danger situations. As has been kind of the history for the last 5 years or so, the confusion around stage 1 restrictions and the enforceability of it has been kind of confounding, not only to our forest partners, but also to local government. So we typically forego stage 1 fire restrictions and opt instead for an aggressive public education campaign, and then go to stage 2 as appropriate. And once we get to stage 2 fire restrictions, that's really when campfires become illegal, as well as off-road travel, those kinds of things that could start a wildfire.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, thanks. Hope people have the good sense just to not have a campfire right now. All right, I think then we are all finished, unless there's anything else.
We meet with state legislators here in a half an hour.
28 minutes.
Okay.
Great. Chris, what are you saying?
I was agreeing. It's 28 minutes,
Good.
but while apparently being muted, so no one can hear what I was doing.
All right. Thank you all.
Thank you.